That's working from home. Coming in. I have not heard from my Counselor Thompson. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Albany City Council Work Session, Monday, September 22nd, 2025 at 4 p.m. And I'll call the meeting to order. Give a roll call, please.
Counselor Van Drimmelen.
Here.
Counselor McLeod.
Present.
Counselor Smith.
Here.
Counselor McGee.
Present.
Counselor Newton.
Present.
Counselor Thompson.
I'm here too.
Mayor Johnson.
The next on the agenda is public comment. Comment is a time for Albany residents to speak and for the councilors to listen. The council won't discuss topics or make decisions during public comment, but will take comments and requests under advisement. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and must follow the council's rules and observe the same standards of decorum. If unable to do so, they will be asked to take a step down and take a seat in the audience for the rest of the meeting. When you get to the microphone, please give your name and state whether or not you live in the city of Albany. Two folks have signed up, Mr. Mark Yeager.
Okay, just checking to make sure it's on. Good afternoon, Mayor Johnson and members of the council. My name is Mark Yeager, and I am a resident of Benton County and have lived in the Albany and Corvallis areas since 1981. In 2022, I served for 8 months on the Landfill Life and Land Use Review Subcommittees for the Benton County Tox Trash Work Group. I have previously served more than 10 years on Benton County's Solid Waste Advisory Council and Disposal Site Advisory Committee. I am also a registered environmental engineer. I'm here today to speak to you about the proposed expansion of the Coffin Butte dump. I understand that Republic Services is on the agenda for your Wednesday meeting with an opportunity to make a presentation to you designed to get your support for the expansion. My message is clear and simple. Please do not take any position on the proposed dump expansion until you hear the complete picture of the dump and its expansion impacts. In 2021, the Benton County Planning Commission heard hours of presentations, reviewed hundreds of pages of evidence about the proposed expansion. It resulted in a unanimous denial of the proposed conditional use permit. In 2025, the Benton County Planning Commission heard 20 hours of presentations and public testimony, reviewed 5,000 pages of documents and comments about the proposed expansion, which also resulted in a unanimous denial of the conditional use permit by the Benton County Planning Commission. This is not a simple issue, and a decision to expand will have major long-term impacts. Please do not be swayed by Republic Services' PR firm and their biased talking points. There are implementable alternatives to more landfilling. The existing dump has 12 to 14 years of existing capacity. It is time for a waste management paradigm shift for our region, and that shift must begin now. There is always more to the story, and I urge you to take the time to learn the full story before taking any position on behalf of the residents of Albany, including those in North Albany, the folks most directly affected by the impacts of this dump and its proposed expansion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Catherine Stearns.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, I reside in a rural area south of Coffin Butte landfill. I want to encourage you to set aside endorsing the conditional use permit that Republic Services is applying for in Benton County. I'm not a scientist, not a statistician, nor an engineer. I'm a citizen of Benton County, and at times I've been a citizen of Lynn County, who has spent more than 4 years learning about the dangers the Coffin Butte landfill poses to the health of our community and our environment. There are more hazards and risks being identified still as the conditional use permit process goes through its appeal. There is a litany of issues for you to consider before giving the expansion your endorsement. Cancer cluster studies, unreported landfill fires, untreated leachate with forever chemicals being dumped into the Willamette River for decades, a persistent methane plume over the area beyond the landfill, roadside litter and litter in the middle of the road, lack of evidence of oversight as to what is being dumped, and I could go on and on. These are just a few of the problems that more than 4 years of intense research has uncovered. Research by professional experts, scientists, and engineers that clearly document Republic Services' lack of being a good neighbor and certainly not an asset to Benton County. Please schedule time for serious expansion opposition to present some of the many findings that led Benton County Planning Commission to unanimously deny Republic Services expansion requests for the second time in recent years. You may believe we are just NIMBYs, but our opposition has garnered support throughout Benton County and beyond. If you endorse the expansion in your neighbors' yards, the overall impacts will affect Albany as well. You won't be able to deny the new mountain, which will be rising to an extent that you'll be able to see it, smell it, and suffer health problems for the sake of mega profits for an out-of-state mega corporation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda, item 3, floodplain program updates. Jennifer Sapello, pages 2 through 8 in your packet.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, I got kicked from the Zoom meeting. Okay, I'm Jennifer Sapello. I'm the city's floodplain manager, and I am here tonight to bring you the updates to the National Flood Insurance Program and just general floodplain updates for our community. So Albany's floodplain consists of approximately 1,458 acres and contains approximately 411 buildings. The current development over the past year has been 2 building permits for new structures within the special flood hazard area and are currently under development. There has been just the 2 development permits issued for development in the floodplain that's not structures, and that is the construction of a fence within the floodway and the future expansion of an existing public lift station over off of Spring Hill Road. Albany participates in the Community Rating System, also known as the CRS. This is a voluntary national program developed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and under the Community Rating System, communities are rewarded for doing more than simply regulating construction of new buildings to a minimum national standard. Under the program, the flood insurance premiums of a community's residents and businesses are discounted to reflect the community's work. The City of Albany joined the CRS program back in 1991 with a class rating of 9, and over the years, we have been able to bring that rating up to a class 5. Last year, we had our 5-year audit for the CRS, and we were able to maintain that class 5, which gives our community approximately 25% off of their annual flood insurance. Also up right now is the Oregon biological opinion. So this went out in 2016, We looked at it a little bit last year, but just as an overall, there was a lawsuit against FEMA for development in the floodplain. And that resulted in a biological opinion that was issued. In this, they mentioned reason and prudent alternatives, or RPAs. And this is a roadmap to provide changes of how we implement the NFIP to avoid the Endangered Species Act. The BIOP is fish recovery focused with attributes on current state of endangerment. Oh, okay. Cool.
Doing great otherwise.
Thanks. Were they up originally?
They popped up.
Oh, okay, cool.
They popped up and they went away.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay. Current development, community development. The CRS, we are one of the reds, being a class 5 in our state. This is the BIOP for 2016. As part of that, in 2021, FEMA completed a draft implementation plan, and in 23, FEMA began the NEPA review process, which is the National Endangered Management Act. So this will affect areas in Oregon, which is going to be 31 of the 36 counties, which was greater than 250 communities that will be impacted by this NEPA review and the biological opinion. Last year, on July 15th, FEMA sent a letter to all NFIP participating communities within the Oregon NFIP ESA, which is Endangered Species Act, integration area, requiring each community to select a pre-implementation compliance measure, also known as the PICM. And we had to start implementing that by December 1st of 2024. At the conclusion of our October 21st, 2024 City Council meeting, City Council directed staff to implement the permit-by-permit habitat assessment option. That is probably the reason we are not seeing more development in the floodplain right now, because people are on hold for that. As part of that PICM, they incorporated a new buffer zone called the riparian buffer zone, as they call the RBZ, and that extends 170 feet inland from the ordinary high water mark. They also included mitigation ratios. So for development in the floodway or in the RBZ, they have a greater mitigation ratio for all new development. Outside of the RBZ, as they're calling the fringe, to the edge of that special flood hazard area has a reduced mitigation ratio. They're only incorporating the special flood hazard area, so if the special flood hazard doesn't extend more than 170 feet, you do not have to do mitigation past just the 100-year floodplain, essentially. As of August 7th of this year, 2025, the draft environmental impact statement was issued. And this has opened up its comment period from August 22nd of this year to October 6th. The draft EIS paths have 4 paths that they offer. First path is adopt a model ordinance that contains the required elements, which is very similar to the PICM, has some minor changes in there. Path B, which is to complete and submit to FEMA an ordinance checklist to demonstrate that new regulations are existing in your local regulations, and both address the required elements as part of that ESA compliance. Path C is complete and implement an approved customized community plan developed by local community and approved by FEMA prior to implementation as meeting the no net loss standards at the community level. So that's kind of creating your own plan showing you're meeting ESA compliance apart from what they already recommend. And then path D is complete and implement a community level habitat conservation plan that is approved by the NMFS as being compliant with section 10 of the ESA. And so those are the 4 paths that they have outlined in that draft EIS. They do mention that a community can adopt more than one path. An example for that would be if a community wanted to adopt a model ordinance, or path A, for properties adjacent to waterways, while alternative compliance methods such as a path C that could be used for the remainder of the community. The community can also change paths over time, for example, using the checklist until you're able to develop your model code or adopt the model code. Like the PICM previously, they have the 3 floodplain functions that they believe are being impacted by development, which is flood storage, water quality, and vegetation. And their proxy is that flood storage capacity, impervious surfaces, and vegetation of trees. And then they have methods for mitigation, again, such as the loss of fish access and egressable in this special flood hazard area, impervious surfaces, and trees removed. In addition to those 4 paths, they have alternative options that are under consideration. So the ESA is just one option. They have an alternative action 1, which is no action. So essentially the PICM would go away, the BIOP would go away, and there would be no change to the NFIP in Oregon as it is in other states of the country. Option 2 is no net loss standards except for project-specific endangered species come into compliance. A similar item to that is ODOT has an ESA compliance, which is similar to option 2. So there are some agencies in the state that have that. Alternative 3 is no net loss for all projects, which would look like if there is a bridge being replaced and they're getting ESA compliance through the Army Corps of Engineers or DSL, they would have to also obtain it from us versus the one being good enough for the whole project. So right now is that comment period. This is the last sheet that was also in the agenda. It does provide a public viewing meeting list of where those public meetings are and virtual public meetings. They have a virtual room, which is set up like a conference room with poster boards so you can kind of go through and look at some of their additional information. They have email on there as well. The importance of this draft EIS and the public period is once that public period ends and a final draft is what comes next. Once that is issued, the city will then have 18 weeks, I believe it was, to adopt that final decision. So we have 18 months, sorry, not weeks. So we have 18 months to adopt. So if the ESA draft doesn't have major changes and it becomes the final, whatever's in there we'll have to adopt for our whole community. Looking at that floodplain map, it does touch every ward, so everyone kind of has some representation as part of that. I highly recommend looking through those draft documents. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. It is very technical information, and I have no problem setting up a one-on-one and discussing concerns.
Council, any questions? Counselor Newton, any questions? Counselor Newton, any
No,
questions?
I do not.
Okay,
Thank you for the thorough presentation.
very much for your presentation. I'm sure we'll read it and come talk to you.
Sorry, give me a second here.
Thank you. Next, city manager has a.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, thank you. The next 3 items on your agenda, or next 2 items, are DLCD technical assistance grants, which the staff would like to make application for. What I'd like to bring to your attention is that we'd like to add a 5A, if you will, a 3rd grant to apply for. That will appear in your Wednesday night packet. And this evening, Matthew Rutgers will address all 3 of them.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. So I'll be pretty brief tonight. So every year, the DLCD, or the Department of Land Development and Conservation, no, I had that wrong. Department of Land Development, or Land Conservation and Development, sorry, I had that backwards. DLCD, we love acronyms. So every year they open up what's called a TA grant, or Technical Assistance Grant. And this year's is really set up for economic development comprehensive plan updates. So we're taking the opportunity to apply for, asking for permission to apply for 3 different grants. And at this point, it's just the ask for permission to apply. We would be back to you guys with basically an acceptance of the grant if we're successful. But the three areas we're focused on are wetlands, to update our LWI, or local wetland inventory. One for downtown parking, which is going to be a topic. I know there's already been some questions about, does this mean we're building something? No, it means we're looking at concepts and furthering the work that was already done by our studies. And the third area is for a comprehensive plan update. For the TA grants that we would apply for, I wouldn't anticipate getting enough money to do the entire comp plan update, but at least a good start on it, especially on the engagement and maybe an overall plan for what that update could look like. At this point, the DLCD requires that we have council permission to apply for a grant, and we'll have a resolution in Wednesday's packet on the consent calendar that would suffice for what they need to see in order for us to apply. I'm here to just kind of give you a briefing of that, knowing that it's going to be on that consent calendar, and answer any questions that you might have.
Councilors, any questions?
Yeah, I have.
She had a comment first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that I was impressed reading through the packet earlier that how practical these are. It just basic bones of the things that we do, and especially glad to see the wetland inventory and the parking situation, and of course the comp plan. I didn't know that was coming, but that's such a big job, and any help we can get is appreciated. Thanks.
Exactly.
Councilor Thompson, thank you.
Yeah, fine on the wetland part, that kind of makes sense, getting that inventory and letting it used for other purposes, for the development folks. The downtown parking. There was maybe you referenced this talking about building on previous thing. There was concern when the carousel was being built that we would lose parking. There would be a parking crunch. And at the time, it said that there was enough parking, and that's played out, surface parking. What's the concern now? Who's this for? Because, then the pandemic hit, and I don't know what the current lineup of businesses downtown, but at best, it's been a wash. Some come out, some come in. But I don't think it's grown tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there has been developments on the horizon, with developments around the Wells Fargo site, potential for option agreement with OB companies. As downtown continues to grow and get better, there will be challenges with parking as other parking areas go away. We have to be able to provide for those opportunities, and certainly this grant would provide an opportunity to build on the studies that we've already done, so that if and when that time gets here, we at least have a plan or are prepared. It's not to say that we're going to build anything right now. These are just kind of in preparation, looking at concepts, what it could look like. Certainly as the downtown grows, expands, gets better, that does provide challenges on the parking side of things. We're just trying to be prepared rather than it get here and not have.
Well, could I ask that we see what you produce what you send off to DLCD, or the application that you have before you, even better? DLC, it may be tempted to see this as free money from the state. And two things about that: one, it's still public tax dollars. Two, we've had a series of these kind of grants, and the thrust and the sentiment and the desire of the DLCD is density. It's building. I just don't think they're going to go down the road of a project if they don't feel like it could be of benefit to perhaps lots of apartments downtown. And that's, I'm just saying out these are not questions, these are concerns, I'd say. But I think we need to know, before we go down that road, we need to kind of be clear-eyed about it. We're talking about a couple projects that have been vaguely talked about, and there's no timeline on those projects. There's nothing, we can always say that. It's always in the future, it's always put down, but then it's in the future, then it happens, and then it becomes, well, we did this study, and that justifies what we want to do and justifies what we always wanted to do all along. So, I have some reservations, and we as a council should look closely at this, because the idea, the public will not be ready for something that is built by the public, that is mostly intended for apartment dwellers downtown. That will not go over well.
And I can address that a little bit. So as I know I talked very briefly about the scope on these. For the parking one in particular, as kind of noted in the memo, we've had 2 parking studies already done in our
Yes.
downtown that have identified that, currently there's not a shortage. However, if any one of these projects go forward, the 2 big projects that I mentioned, that absolutely will start to strain that surface parking, and being prepared. So this grant itself would look at potential solutions for that, not only potentially a parking garage, I know that's been kicked around a lot, and potential sites for that, as well as a business plan of what that looks like. How does that operate? How does it all work? So it's very, very high level. It's not committing us to doing anything. Obviously, as we go through this grant preparation projects, which our grants are due on October 10th, then it'll be several weeks until we actually hear if we're successful on that grant. We'll be back before this council with those particular scopes, as we are still currently kind of defining those, and it'll go through another process of that as we go through grant award. But we'll be back before this council to talk about grant award if it's something that we want to move forward with. So hopefully that, I know it's not going to answer all your questions, but at least gives you some idea of what it's
Color me
at.
skeptical, that's all. Color me skeptical.
Yeah.
Counselors? Counselor Newton? Thank you. So we'll see you Wednesday night.
Great. Thank you.
Next, item 6 on your agenda packet is Orla, Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association litigation settlement. Sean Kidd, our city attorney, at pages 13 and 17 in your packet.
Good afternoon. So just real brief, on the consent agenda for Wednesday night will be a resolution, which is authorizing the city to enter into a 70-30 split, establishing a 70-30 split with our TLT revenue as part of a settlement agreement we had with Orla. You may remember back in July that we finally got that case resolved. And as part of that agreement, this was the last part of that, which is adopting a resolution that memorialized the 70-30 split. So, have any questions on it?
A question here, Counselor McGee.
I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding. So the 70-30 was really what was already happening, and we kind of...
Basically, yeah. I think over the past 20 plus years, we've traditionally spend over 70% of our TLT revenue on tourism or tourism-related facilities. There's been a few years that it may have been a little less than that, and in several years it had been significantly higher than that. But there had been a dispute that dated back all the way to 2010 between Orla and the city on what the proper allocation of TLT expenditures would be. The city maintained that it was around 45%, whereas Orla thought it was closer to 94%. And this is a kind of a settlement of that dispute.
Okay. I had a constituent reach out and was really a little frustrated about the fact that we went through that process with resources and time to go back to where we already were. And in a nutshell, they thought it was a real waste of time, of resources. So just wanted to get some clarity and some transparency on that.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So, yeah, again, I think, like I was saying before, since this, I'd say 2003, when the new law was adopted, Albany has spent, I would say, around the average of 72%-ish a year, if you average it out all the years, on tourism or tourism-related facilities for the tax from the TLT. but there had been some years, and I think actually during COVID, kind of what really spawned this lawsuit a little bit, of what the actual percentage should be. And there had been, like I said, from way back when our prior city manager, city attorneys, finance director, economic development director, all different people back then, this came up with they thought it was 44.5%, which the city has maintained that was what were required under the law to pay. And Orla had a different interpretation of that statute and thought it was 94%. And so they had come to us early on in the dispute, and I brought it before council with an offer to settle for 70%. And the council at that time, and I will say that was different people on the council at that time, some different people in the council at the time, did not want to settle at 70-30 at that time, and we continued to fight that case. And then at the beginning of this year, when the council changed, Orla came back to the city with the offer again and wanted us to make the offer again. And then the council this time voted to do the settlement at the 70-30. So,
Thank you, Sean, appreciate it.
you bet.
Any other comments? Councilor Smith?
This was a topic statewide during the 25 legislative session, and considerable work done on that, and some movement for the first time in ages. I think where it died at the end of the session was with a consensus that 60-40 might be doable. And that's going to come back.
Councilor Smith, it was 40-60.
46, thank you. That's even, yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And anyway, that's going to come back for additional discussion in the next session. The way I read the settlement agreement, sounds like if state law changes, we would change our percentage the same
That's
way.
correct. We could change ours to mirror state law. Wouldn't be required to. We could still spend 70 or 80 or 100 if we wanted to, but we could go to whatever the state requirement was. And that is in the settlement agreement, and it's also, which I believe was attached to the agenda packet tonight, actually, but also it's in the resolution as well. So,
Okay. Councilor Newton, you have anything?
I don't have anything.
So Councilor McLeod, Councilor over here. So I went and testified about the tourism impacts, police and fire, EMS. I hope they bring that back when it comes back again, because there was a lot of people in that room were for the tourism impacts that will cover the overtime and cover for our employees. So I'm looking forward to going back to that.
yeah, it'll be interesting.
Mr. Mayor, it's worth pointing out along those lines that, as I've done numerous times before, that Oregon is one of the few states that doesn't have a sales tax. And in most states, those services that you're referencing are paid for by the sales taxes that tourists bring into the state. In this state, that doesn't happen. So that flexibility is needed. It's very, as you know, due to the pressures on our budget, it's sorely needed, not just by us, but by cities all around the state. So hopefully in the next legislative term, it'll be changed, reformed.
I'm hoping so. Next is the business from the council. Thank you, Sean. Councilor Thompson?
I have nothing.
Councilor Van Dremelen?
No new business tonight.
Councilor Smith?
Yes, going back to business from the public this evening, public comment. I would like to hear both sides of the story about the landfill before any decision is made, rather than just hearing a presentation from Republic Services on Wednesday.
Thank you. Councilor McGee?
Had an opportunity to bump into Councilor Newton and the mayor yesterday at the Mushroom Festival, and it was pretty cool.
It was fun. Councilor McLeod?
Thank you. I am in agreement with Councilor Smith. I would like to hear from both sides of the Coffin Butte argument before a decision is made on that. So I have a couple other pieces of business. Since the last meeting, I attended some events. I attended the 9/11 ceremony at the American Legion. I attended the Hayden Homes ribbon cutting for the new Meadowlark community, bringing new housing options to Ward 2. I
Ward three.
volunteered.
It's actually Ward 3.
Oh, is it Ward 3?
Yeah, I looked it up. Yeah, it's Ward 3.
Ooh, okay. Okay. Across is very close. All right. All right. Well, bringing new housing options to our city. I also volunteered at the first aid tent for the Mushroom Festival, where reportedly 7,000 people were in attendance. We had a few attendees who needed assistance, and I'm glad we were there to assist. I also had a resident reach out to me asking about the dead trees on Crocker Road, if those will be replaced. I contacted Jay Sharp, the city's urban forester, and he replied that he has plans to replace 7 trees on Crocker between Meadowwood and Cluster Oak, and 3 more north of Crocker and 23rd. And that's all I have. Thank you.
And you're too modest. Councilor McLeod helped someone survive. And I want to highlight that she helped bring back a lady that lost her pulse, and very heroic effort. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Next, Councilor Newton, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, just Shana Tova. It's Rosh Hashanah at sundown until Wednesday night. So happy New Year, y'all.
All right, thank you. I'll now turn it over to the city manager for his report. Item 8 on your agenda.
Just one item for you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder for those of you that are on, well, for all of you really, but tomorrow evening we have a joint litigation committee hearing, or not hearing, but meeting where you will be getting a brief from our counsel on our lawsuit.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 4:36 p.m. I'll see you Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. for our city council meeting, September 24th at 6 p.m. Oh, I did?